Have you ever felt stuck in your life? Have you ever felt like you've tried everything and no matter what you do, it's as if nothing is working out for you? It could be a business. It could be that you're trying extremely hard. You're working on 3 to 5 different projects all at once. You're trying your best not to go back to your shitty 9 to 5. And yet nothing you do in your business is making a difference in your income. Well, if any of this is true for you, then in this video, I'm going to share with you what's behind that and what is actually going to make the significant difference in your efforts. You see, you'll notice that sometimes the people who work the hardest at something get the least done. I know that was true for me, and it has been true in my life. Whenever I try to really force something to happen, I find that it's almost as if the universe is working against me. Like, I remember when I was a student in graduate school, I was working on, I think, like 4 different main projects, let alone side projects. And I worked 12-hour days, 6, 7 days a week. And for a very long time, I got very little accomplished. I mean, mind you, I was working on all of these, so whatever I ended up doing was an incremental addition. So I was kind of radiating my efforts outward. My energy was being dispersed. And this can happen to us. This can happen because for me, I was experiencing and going through a sense of, well, if I don't hedge my bets, then I might fail. And I don't want that to happen. So what that leads to is this dispersion of energy, a lack of focused effort, dedicated, intentional effort. So what I want to offer is a reading today from Colossians 3:15 that speaks to the heart of this. This is what Paul says here. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. And that's the part I want to emphasize from this verse. Let the peace of God rule in your hearts. Now, when you hear that, if one is responsible for letting the peace of God rule in their hearts, it implies a number of things. One is that if something is to rule, it's likely that there's a battle or a contestation occurring over a territory, over a domain, in this case, the heart or the soul. In order to let peace rule, peace has to first dominate the terrain or the landscape it finds itself in. Now, this is a very interesting consideration because it implies or suggests that there are other forces in contestation to the peace of God in our hearts. Forces like anxiety, fear, greed, envy, ambition, and so on and so forth. And it also implies that if we're to let peace rule in our hearts, we're the ones who let it rule. It's almost as if we need to be receptive to it ruling. We need to allow for the peace of God to rule in our hearts, which means that we are also capable of keeping it at bay. And I'll offer that we do that through our resistance. We do that through our efforting, through our own volition, through our own will. If our efforts aren't actually aligned with the flow of life, with the way in which life is manifesting itself and wanting to flow itself or wanting to create itself through you and all around you, when we start to go against that because we have a little mind-made agenda, we can very easily prevent the peace of God from ruling in our hearts. For context, we now know that the universe has been around for over 13 billion years. And that same creative life force energy that brings about new creations, new forms all the time. This creative life force energy that's behind all manifestation, the isness of what is, that isness is the same creative life force energy that's inside you right now. And our little mind-made self, our little mind-made sense of ourselves and our plans and agendas have the tendency of thinking that things should be different than what they are. It has the tendency of wanting things to be a certain way. Gosh, if it rains, I really hope it doesn't rain today. I don't want it to rain today. It better not rain today, or otherwise X, Y, or Z. I don't know, I'm emphasizing rain, but that's the metaphor that keeps coming to mind. But you understand my point. We impose our agenda on reality. We impose our agenda on what is, expecting it to be a certain way, expecting it to be different than what it is, when really what we're doing is we're getting in the way. Not really, but we're sort of working against, you could say, at a relative level. We're working against this over this 13 billion year old, this 14 billion year old impulse to flow, to create, to bring about new forms. And we get in the way of that. We get in the way of that tremendous creative potential that lies inside each and every single one of us because we lack trust in God, in ourselves, in our own understanding that, well, this manifestation, this creative impulse, the creative spirit of life itself exists in us. And it wants to be in relationship to us, you could say. And yet we get in the way with our agenda, thinking that, well, we need to make money right now, or whatever it is for you. So consider that you need to let the peace of God rule in your heart, as the scriptures say. And this very much ties in for me with some of the teachings of Jesus in Matthew 6 regarding what he refers to as this whole section on not worrying. And it's specifically this part here where he says, this is Matthew 6:28, "And why do you worry about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin. And yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not clothed like one of these." And of course, Solomon was one of the wealthiest, if not the wealthiest, probably by far the wealthiest king in the Judeo-Christian tradition. So, but this point about the lilies, how they don't toil nor spin, how they don't grind, they don't hustle and grind. There's this sense of, and you'll notice this if you just pay attention to nature. You'll notice this effortless manifestation. If I live in a place where there are seasons, and you'll notice how in the transition from winter to spring, how the trees will just simply begin to manifest and bring about new leaves. They'll begin to just simply bud and create these new leaves that will eventually fall again, but there's no efforting behind it. It's just a simple, you could call it a surrendered action that occurs, that nature utilizes to bring about and to create. And so I'll offer that, well, if Jesus Christ is comparing this effortless surrendered action to the richest and most and the wealthiest king of all of the Judeo-Christian tradition, well, that's signifying something. That's signifying that there's a way of manifesting abundance in your life that isn't done through hustle nor through grinding. It's done through letting the peace of God rule in your heart. It's done through perfect alignment with what is, perfect alignment with the creative life force potential inside you that wants to be birthed, that wants to birth new creations through you, uniquely through you, that creative impulse, that whatever it is you're effortlessly fascinated by, whatever that thing is, that's a clue, that's a sign that if you followed it, you could call that the burning bush actually. That's that little spark of curiosity that causes Moses to go off from the purpose that he was initially intending on when he went up the mountain. It's something that grips your attention, that's calling you and beckoning you forward. That, aligning with that, speaks directly to this. It speaks to you surrendering to that creative life force potential. Just like the lilies in the field, they neither toil nor spin. And yet they're perfect, you could say. They're beautiful. There's a profound elegance behind them. There's effortless creation that arises. What gets in the way of that is our resistance. And what is resistance? Let me give you a precise definition. Resistance is the ego itself. The ego isn't an entity in our minds. The ego is the feeling of resistance itself. I don't necessarily advocate for the death of the ego. You might hear some people suggesting that you murder your ego, you slaughter it, you kill it, double degree homicide, whatever the term might be. I'll offer that in an attempt to kill your ego, that's simply the ego trying to get rid of the ego. That is shooting yourself in the foot. We need the ego for manifestation, actually. Without the ego, we'd be sitting, staring at a wall somewhere, not moving. The ego is needed, and it's helpful. And right intention, you could say, is to align the egoic will to the larger will of the infinite, the larger will of God, the larger will that is behind all manifestations, that is the isness of all things, that is the amness of all selves. I hope I'm making sense. I hope this is resonating with you. I hope you're understanding the point I'm attempting to convey in the feeble words that I'm using, as imprecise and as difficult it can be to convey a message like this. So consider where you have resistance in your life. Consider where you are working against your own intuitive insight that is telling you to go a different direction, that is telling you to focus on something else, and yet you still think that you have the right idea, and yet you still think that you should go the way that you are going, and despite you not getting the outcomes that you're actually desiring to get. And why is this so difficult for us? Well, it's so difficult for us to surrender to this impersonal, divine will, to align to it. It's so difficult because it requires us surrendering our agenda. It requires us surrendering the result that we want to get, the outcome that we want to get. It really is a path of mystery. It's not so much you getting a specific outcome as it is you walking down a specific path. It's like you see a trail in the forest, and that trail is enticing for you. And you decide to walk down that trail not knowing where it's going to take you. It's kind of like that. Surrendered action is what you've been looking for. Surrendered action is the end of your resistance to the work that you do. It's the end of resistance to what is. And in that surrendered action, you allow the peace of God to rule in your heart. You don't toil, nor do you spin, just like the lilies on the field. It requires trust, faith, you could say. Trust in something greater than yourself, greater than your mind-made sense of self, your little egoic conception of who you imagine yourself to be. It requires trust in this vast, powerful, creative spirit that underlies all manifestation in the universe, and an understanding that that actually works through you if you allow it to. It's not separate from all of the other manifestations around you. It's not separate from the stars and the galaxies. That same creative potential is within you and is wanting you to get out of your own way for it to create through you. Done.